everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's Irene and I hope you're all doing well. So today's video is an exciting one because it's all about how to start sewing your own clothes, which is a very beautiful moment where you're excited to start learning to sew and creating beautiful garments for yourself. I remember when I first started, I was really excited, couldn't wait. I was screaming when I received my sewing machine and overlocker. And I just want to give you guys some tips about this because I started quite late. I only started sewing after I was robbed and a lot of my clothes were stolen. And these were clothes that were, you know, investments for me, not only because I do YouTube here, but also because I, like to buy few but good garments. And I was really sad about it, but in the end I was also trying to take it as an opportunity to start something new. So I decided to start sewing, and before I hadn't started it because I thought that sewing is something incredibly difficult and that homemade garments can never look good. Only, professionally made garments can look good. Homemade garments are always going to look cheaper than if you bought, I don't know, a Cezanne, for example, which is, good quality. So this wasn't true, of course, because there are so many, vintage garments that we see that were handmade that look amazing. Of course, there are ways to make it beautifully at home, but the trick is to learn the right way, to take the steps carefully and enjoy the process without having without jumping into making, I don't know, a silk nightgown or whatever as your first project. Take it step by step and absorb every part of it. And here is the video about that. So the first step is obviously finding a sewing machine, and this is also one of the most exciting but at the same time daunting experiences. First of all, I think that if you already have a sewing machine available to you within your family and friends that you can ask and use, definitely do that. But make sure that it's not such a bad and old, completely ruined machine that ruins the experience for you. Still make sure it's a machine that helps you enjoy, so that you can actually know whether or not you like it, or is it the machine that you don't like. But when it comes to choosing a sewing machine, if you're going to buy one, I can't give you so much information because I've only ever had one sewing machine, and mine is a Brother CX70PE computer, and it's honestly everything I could ask for. I don't even know what those more expensive ones have or not, because I'm perfectly content with mine. It's very lightweight, I can move it around as much as I want, which is very useful for my lifestyle, and it has a lot of stitches, and it wasn't really cheap, but it was also not the most expensive one. It was, I think, around 300 euros, and I think that you can even get other machines for less if you have one with less stitch options, which, I mean, honestly, I only use the button stitch. I don't even use a zigzag because I have an overlocker, but there is a zigzag and a straight stitch, and what else? I don't even know. These are the main ones, so you don't really need a whole lot. It's more about, the comfort, and I also like the fact that mine has a glass lower thread bobbin case so that I can see when it's finishing, but sort of that's what I went for. So the next step, of course, is collecting your tools and creating your sewing kit. This is very exciting. I remember how excited I was about this, and it was also a pretty fun experience because as a minimalist, I usually buy really few things, but everything I buy tends to be expensive. So buying, I don't know, even if you buy the most expensive pins, it's not going to be that much, which I didn't, by the way. You can totally save money on a lot of sewing supplies. So that was really, really exciting, and I really, really enjoyed that. It was also fun to have the choice of so many different things, because you need a lot of different things when you're creating that kit. But if you want more advice on which tools are the most essential ones for a beginner, which ones you really need to have when you begin, because there are a lot of ones that are really nice to have but aren't necessarily things you need to have in the beginning, especially when you don't even know how often you're gonna be sewing and how much you like it or what you're gonna be sewing exactly. I've made a video about that. I will put the card somewhere on the screen and you can watch that if you want more information. So naturally, the next step is finding resources and learning. So I learned mainly from another YouTuber who is called Evelyn Wood. She's a sewist, she's amazing, and she has an online class where she has like many lessons, and it's like, I believe like 20 Australian dollars per month, a subscription like that. And I honestly learned everything I know from that. I absolutely recommend it. It was very amazing. There's even a community where you can ask questions and get answers. You can even ask her personally. It was amazing, and I'm currently not subscribed to it, but just because I haven't needed it for a while, but I will resubscribe because there are still lessons I didn't do, but I'm trying to sort of digest the things I've learned in this period and like sew more things and then continue and go into like more like high level things. Apart from this kind of like YouTube type resources, you can also find a lot of courses in sewing shops in your local area, and I also recommend like books and you know, even vintage sewing books are really cool. There are also teachers online that you can find that you can have like lessons through Skype. I even had one, my boyfriend actually gifted me a lesson for Christmas last year, this year I guess would be, that was a woman from Paris who worked for Hermes, it's called Hermes, yeah, and she was like amazing. I learned so much from her, and it wasn't even like crazy overpriced or anything, and honestly, I could ask her everything I needed to know. I had like an accumulation of questions that I needed to ask someone. They were like specific things. If you ever have something like that, you can find like a whole range of teachers online as well. So my next tip is, of course, during your learning curve, you need to take everything slowly and make sure you digest, especially the basics, really, really well. Make sure you learn to do a straight seam before you start doing a curved one like perfectly. And then if you need practice as much as it takes until you get it right. And I think that fundamentals are very important in any subject, no matter what you're learning. And if you skip the fundamentals because you're impatient, people tend to never really go back after that and revise it. So it's just never really perfect after that. So if you want really professional looking, well-made garments, and if you also want like a bit more, you know, knowledge and to be able to sew more easily and solve your problems more easily, then you need to really pay attention to your fundamentals and digest it. Take your time, learn the basics, and then go to the next level, learn the next thing, and choose your sewing patterns carefully so that you know, first you learn something and you take a sewing pattern that applies that, and then you take another one. For example, you want to learn to do a zipper, take a zipper one that, you know, doesn't have 10 things you don't know about it yet. One by one, slowly. So talking about learning, I want to precisely say 3 things that beginners always tend to skip. First of all, ironing. Before you do anything, iron your fabric, wash your fabric. This is something you shouldn't skip. It's not a joke, like really do it. And second, before you cut your fabric, make sure it's perfectly aligned and the grain line, like you find it perfectly. That is absolutely essential. These are 3 things that you absolutely should not skip. And the third one is also finishing your seams. Don't skip finishing your seams. And if you're making like a mock-up or anything like that, that's okay. But if it's your actual garment, make sure you finish your seams. So once the whole process of sewing starts coming naturally to you and you don't have to like check YouTube videos every time you have to thread your machine, I'm guilty of that in the beginning. This whole process is starting to feel more naturally, then you can figure out what it is you want to sew specifically in general, and start steering yourself in that direction and starting with small projects and building up your skill set toward that one thing. If you want to be making clothing or if you want to be making bags or whatever. So I have made a video about free sewing patterns that are beginner friendly if you're interested in sewing clothes, and I will link it somewhere on the screen. And another tip is to not be afraid of starting over again. So unpicking. The unpicker is always everyone's worst nightmare, but it's actually your best friend because it helps you, go back and redo something and make sure that your garment is perfect and that you learn along the way. This is not just something for beginners. Everyone, even the most experienced sewists, use the unpicker many times during their projects, I promise you. So a common thing is when you're a beginner sewist, you always have a fear of cutting into your beautiful fabric. I don't think this fear ever goes away completely, but one thing that really helped me, especially as a beginner, is to make mock-ups. So every single thing I've ever sewn since the beginning of sewing, my sewing journey, was mock-ups every single time. So when I make mock-ups, I make the shell of the garment without the facings, and I use a scrap fabric. I ask people around me if they have like bed sheets that I can take, like that they don't want anymore, and I use those things to make mock-ups and test things and make sure I understood the sewing pattern correctly and that I know the whole process. I don't always make just the shell. In the beginning especially, I was actually making garment from beginning to end, and this made it way easier for me to not fear cutting my actual fabric, because it's not your first time cutting it, it's not your first time making it, it's the second time, and you have knowledge of what you're going to be facing, and this gives you a lot of confidence before you actually cut into your real fabric. So next is learning certain little touches and techniques that experienced sewists know, that make your garments way more professional and less homemade looking and more, well made and high quality. These are sometimes not even difficult. Like, a lot of these are just easy things, you just need to think about them. I even have a sewing journal in which I have a checklist so that I don't forget any of these steps, and these steps include, pressing as you go, under stitching, stay stitching, things like that, and I already made a video about this as well, so check it out if you're interested. Another tip is actually checking the garments you already have. So sometimes I am coming across something that I have never seen before and I can't really find exactly my situation on YouTube or whatever, or I can't really understand. Then the best way to do it is to look into my wardrobe, and usually I find something that was professionally made and a high quality garment that I can check, and I check inside it and see exactly how they did it, and this teaches me a lot of things. I even learn like techniques and like little touches that I haven't seen anywhere on YouTube, just by looking at my own garments, and that was like really helpful. So this is it for this video, guys. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I really wish you the best for your upcoming sewing journey. I honestly, I was so excited myself, so I'm really excited for you at this point. Sometimes I wish that I could go back and relive that whole exciting experience of starting sewing. It was really amazing. And let us know in the comments below which ones are your tips for the beginners and which ones are the things you like the most from, like, that you took away from this video. And thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, remember to please like, comment and subscribe to support the channel. And thank you again. See you in the next video. Bye!